Greetings, everybody. Patrick here, 8 Questions With. And that's right, we are here today, bright and early. It is 2 p.m. here in southeastern Michigan, and we have temperatures in the 70s. And of course, it says that I'm going on too early. Just not like that. But I always go on 15 minutes early before the show starts, but Facebook doesn't really pick that up because it says I'm going up at 2 o'clock. I should just fix that. All right. So, welcome to the show. I'd like to thank everybody who came out yesterday for our interview with Shane Barella from uh, Scented Leaf Tea House, based out of Tucson, Arizona. Had a very fun show with Shane last night. A lot of people showed up. Well, not a lot, but maybe a squad, but that's all right. Um, I really hope you guys come and watch the replay for that. Hey, it's Explorer of Horror. Welcome in. Welcome in. We are going to be talking with a fellow interviewer and movie reviewer. We're going to be talking with Matt Cuss from the Pugwall 316 YouTube channel. And there's our favorite couple from the Dakotas, Sue. Hi, Sue. How are you? I'm glad you're here. Glad you're here. Feel free to share us out if you like. That would be cool. I don't. Uh, let's see. I don't know. I hope this goes well. This is Matt is from the UK, so hopefully some will come over from the UK to come over and support him. He is a really nice young man. He's got some really cool interviews that are going on. I knew I was going to interview him when I saw his interview with our old buddy Al Lucard, aka the Bat. Um, so I said, "Yeah, we're going to talk to Matt." So we are in about 10 minutes or so. Again, yesterday was a lot of fun interviewing Shane Barella. What a great story he has. Just pulled himself up by the bootstraps and got busy, and what an inspiration too. And congratulations to him and Scented Leaf for kicking butt and continuing to grow. I definitely hope that I plan to anyway. I definitely plan on having him come back and giving us an update on the new store that's going to be opening up soon. We'll talk to him maybe about 6 months or so once the store gets open. That's the beautiful thing about about his business too is his business truly is all year round, based in Arizona. They don't have a winter per se, um, so they're going to be doing really, really good business all the way up through and beyond every year. So congratulations once again. All right. So yes, I got to talk about the calendar while I get a chance here. So this is the first of two shows today. We have two shows today. We have our interview with Matt uh, coming up here, and then at 8 o'clock at our regular time, we will be back with our good friend Jamie Hart, and she will be back, and we'll be catching up with her and seeing what she's been up to. Um, she has she has been having some adventures. Oh, there it is, the bat. All right. See, I just got done mentioning the bat, and there he flies in. I'm telling you, they have hearing. Not only can they have radar on their nose, but you have ears like a bat. Well, he must have heard me. Um, so Jamie Hart will be with us tonight at 8 o'clock. That'll be a lot of fun catching up with her. I know recently she celebrated a birthday, and I believe she celebrated uh, um, I think she celebrated a birthday and a wedding anniversary all at once. And if I'm not mistaken, and she might have actually celebrated her first date. Women remember these things. Guys, we never remember. If you go out to most guys that have been married or been with their partner or spouse for 20 years and sit there and say, "Tell us about your first date." A lot of guys will sit there and go like, "Well, I, oh, but ask a woman. She'll remember the first date. She'll remember what you ordered, who ordered first. Um, she'll remember the first thing you told her, the last thing you told her on the first date. They just remember things like that. So we'll be talking with Jamie at 8 o'clock. Tomorrow we have two shows. Two. First of all, at 4 o'clock, we will be welcoming in the very vivacious and very talented Karen Lamb will be here with us. We'll be talking about her new film, The Curse of Willow Song, which is now out on, will be coming out next week on Uncorked Entertainment. That was a fun movie to watch. Um, that was an interesting movie, definitely interesting. Um, I asked Karen a question. I said, so I'm just wondering, is this what I'm seeing? And I asked her told her my plot, my idea for the plot, and she goes, yes. And I'm reading all these other reviews, and they totally missed it. They did not get what she was trying to tell, the story she was telling. Um, they still liked the movie, but they didn't see where she was trying to go with it, and it's very, very cool. Um, hey, Echo, how are you? Let's see. Yeah, looks like it's gonna be a busy day for you. I know there's gonna be a late edition of the Echo side coming on tonight, from what I'm hearing. And that will probably be around 10:30 our time. So Karen Lamb will be with us here tomorrow at 4. Not only has she done a movie called Evangeline, which she got critical acclaim for, but she also did the film Bring It On, Cheer or Die. That was part of the Bring It On franchise. They went to a horror direction type of deal. I heard that movie was pretty decent. I know I saw the cast in it, and I know the cast is really good. So I know that Karen direction is very good. I just hope the story is. But I hadn't heard anybody say anything negative about it, so um, I'm excited to catch it. I'm excited to. I hope it's getting a home release. I know it came out on Universal, 1440. That's their lower end budget movies. So I'm hoping that did get a home release. I know that the Bring It On movies are very, very popular, starting with the first one, but everyone that's come on after since has done very well as far as sales go. People really like the movies. They buy them quite a bit. All right. And then tomorrow night at our regular slot, 8 o'clock, we welcome in artist Josh Adams. He'll be here tomorrow night at 8. He is a fantastic artist, and he will be here to show off his art. He is amazing. You will be blown away by it, and hopefully we'll get him to do a little bit of painting and creating while we do our interview with him. There is our other guest for today, Miss Jamie Hart. She must have borrowed Al's ears. We just got done talking about Jamie, and there she is. I'm telling you, of course, the bat is sending out the bat signal. Um, so that will be tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and then Sunday the 24th at 8 o'clock, we're all headed to Horror with Haas's channel for the IFC show. We're going to be watching the Den Sunday at 8 o'clock at Horror with Haas. Then next Monday we welcome in Natalie Denise Spurl, and I'll tell you about that after we talk to our good friend Matt here. So he is here. So put your hands together, share us out if you can, and here we go. Uh, there we go.
Hey.
Greetings, sir. Greetings.
Hello. Greetings. How are you?
Good. How's the UK? I hear that London is calling, but it's calling for rain.
It's stormy. It's really stormy at the moment. I live by the sea, so it's I can hear it from my room right now. We're being battered.
Let's see. The bat wants to know if you're British.
No. no, no. That's a common misconception.
You know what? You think about it. I think it's Al Lucard who's British because didn't
Yeah.
Dracula really basically get a start in the UK?
This is it. This is the reason. Actually, that's the reason why I even found Al's channel because of I thought it was like a reference to Dracula AD 1972,
Yes,
and yeah, and then he tells me there's a few different sort of reasons for it, um, but from getting into his channel, watching it a lot, and then getting to know him, like chatting to him for quite a long time before I even really did anything properly on the channel. He's the guy. He's the man. He's the
he
bat.
is the man. He is the man. See, look at see. He said he did buy land in England. That's right. And when he came over on the last voyage of the Demeter, they did land and they did land in the UK.
That's
So
true.
I do believe the Al is actually British.
Yeah, well, he probably loves Britain more than I do, to be honest.
Uh, Hi Ava, how are you? Our friend Jamie is here. Echo's here.
I'll be watching her later.
Yes, so we had a few people come in. Thank you so much for coming in. We're gonna have a lot of fun here, chopping it up with Matt from Pugwall 316. I'm glad you guys are here. And I have to admit, man, I'm a little nervous too because I'm actually interviewing an interviewer. So that means I have to do a good job as well because I'm talking to a pro. Um,
You always do a good job. I watch your 8 questions quite a lot actually. Yeah, I really enjoy them. So no worries there.
okay,
Um,
because I mean, the pressure's on, and it's like, man, I better deliver. Better deliver the good. Everybody's watching.
no. That makes me feel more nervous now. I mean, the thing is, for me, doing interviews is really it's my day job, but in a different realm. So it's like asking questions, trying to find out about people very quickly, so that I can kind of get an accurate picture of what their setting is like, their education setting is like. So just transferring it to horror is like kind of you know something that I love in my own everyday life. It's kind of happened quite naturally after doing podcasts and things and realizing that I'd much prefer asking questions than answering them. Um, yeah, that's kind of how it's worked out. So yeah,
Thank you, Jamie. It says I'm a great interviewer. Don't sweat it. Uh,
exactly. You are. You are.
yeah, but it is. It does. It is a little. It is a little. It's a little because you're talking to a peer and you're talking to
Yeah.
someone who has experience, and you just want to ask the right questions. You want to you want to keep doing what you've been doing.
Oh, for sure.
It is a little intimidating a little bit.
It is when you like. I find it quite tricky. I probably edited more when I first started because I was just so hyper aware of little things that I was saying a lot or repeated phrases I was doing, and I got inside my own head with that quite a lot when I knew it was going out on YouTube. Now I'm a little bit more relaxed with it. So I definitely understand that. I think as well with interviews, the the research and the prep, and you want to do justice to the people like that you're interviewing. Obviously the first thing that I do is I just think I want to sell this person. I want other people to enjoy the thing that I enjoy. So I have to tell myself it's a completely different role, isn't it, from like now I feel like already I feel like I'm talking too much.
Oh gosh, yeah, that is that's probably my number one problem too. Sometimes I can actually hear myself talking too much, and I'm getting like, as I'm speaking inside, I'm going like, "Shut the hell up," you know,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm always like, just get to the point, Matthew.
Uh, hey, it's Mike. From Did You See That? He's in the house. All right, all
Oh,
right.
cool. He did a
Yeah.
really good interview with Art with David Howard
Yeah.
Thornton.
I
Yeah,
watched that interview.
it was really
Uh,
good.
I was a little bit on my, I got to be honest with you, Matt. I got on my soapbox about that the other day.
Oh
I'm
yeah, I
sitting
saw.
here,
Yeah,
yeah, I did because I'm rolling inside there. I mean, I'm rolling inside. I'm going to his interview, and there's like 14 people in there, or
yeah,
David Thornton Howard. I'm going like, that's acceptable 2 years ago. right? That's
Yeah.
acceptable,
Well,
but
you
it's not,
know,
not
put
acceptable now.
no, I agree. Put that into context. Like last year, I paid a hefty amount of money to have my picture with the same guy in
Right.
costume, obviously. But yeah, he's developing that kind of horror icon status.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
I
why
mean,
so why is there only 14 of us so-called horror fans? Why was there only 14 of us there watching it? Why
well,
wasn't there like
people get on it
100?
now. Yeah, people get on
Yeah.
it now because it's hopefully get on it and go back and watch it.
2 years ago, Art was making the thank you for coming out, Echo. I appreciate it. Um,
Well, thanks, man.
it's 2 years ago. There's a lot of people in the community that did interview David Thornton Howard, and they were
Mm,
able to do it because nobody really knew who he was, right?
sure. Yeah,
No
yeah,
one knew. No one really. There was Terrifier, but Terrifier was building up, and then Terrifier 2 came out, and it had tremendous success. And
yeah,
it's just like, holy cow! And you could actually see in the interview with Mike, you could see that, you can see what David's been, he understands that he is getting bigger every single month.
yeah, yeah. He
He's
is.
on the rise. And
And
what I
taking over that role as well is
yeah,
interesting, isn't it? Taking over the role with the first one and then kind of developing it. And the last one I thought was wild and like very 80s feel to it. Or I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. So
well, my point is he was much easier to get for an interview 2 years ago, even a
sure.
year and a half
Yeah.
ago. Now,
Yeah.
not so much. And
Yeah.
and
It's a big
Mike had to
get.
work. He had to work his ass off for that interview. I mean,
Mm,
you
yeah.
you hear him say, he had met David at a con, and he'd been working to get that interview. He had to work for months to get that.
Right.
That's hard
Wow.
work. Now,
Yeah.
before, a couple of years ago, we could have pinged him on his Instagram, and he would have did it for nothing. He would have just been here, hey, what's going on? And he did.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
now it's so hard to get them. And so when we do get somebody at that level, when we do get a star at that level of where he's going to, I
Yeah.
just find it fascinating that no one goes out there and supports it.
Yeah, it is. It's a strange one, isn't it? Because often like for instance, the first interview that I did, I didn't do it for my channel. I did it to promote the podcast. And then we decided to go a different route with the way we were going to promote the podcast. So I kind of chopped it up and made it and put it on YouTube. And it was with Jed Shepherd, who co-wrote Host. And he was we literally spent an afternoon together chatting, and I just couldn't get over the fact that he was so open. So somebody literally had like at the time I had maybe like 5 subscribers or something like that, and somebody at that level is so open to you know chatting for ages and ages and ages. And I kept saying, if you need to go, you can go. And he was like, no, it's fine. And
Yeah,
like, there's so many gracious people, and often the more secure they are in their own talent, the more likely they are to just be comfortable talking to anybody. That it's not an ego trip.
no.
It's the people who maybe are a little bit insecure about their talent that are harder to deal with.
Um, I can honestly say this in all honesty. I have never had anybody with ego. I've never had to
Yeah.
deal with anybody with an ego.
Yeah, I have in my day job, in education. I haven't since I've been interviewing people related to film and all the different like books and things like that. People have been lovely, really nice.
You would think it'd be the reverse. You think the normal people would be egoless and easy to work with and whatnot, and the stars
Yeah.
would be the ones who put you through the hoops. And it's
Yeah,
absolutely the reverse.
yeah,
Uh,
I think status can be like quite intoxicating for anyone at any level in any job. For for all of us who've done all kinds of different jobs, like it's that supervisor who has got ideas above the station and wants to make you feel like that. These people exist at all levels of life, don't they? So yeah.
yeah, I've who was your first interview? Let me ask you that. Who was your very first interview that you talked to?
On this channel,
Yeah.
the first interview I did was the Million Dollar Man Ted DiBiase, um, which was 3 years ago now.
Wow.
Um,
All right.
Yeah, and then I literally did nothing else on the channel for about two years.
Well, you
Um,
had Ted DiBiase up there.
yeah, yeah, and he was lovely, and he was really nice actually. He um, he sent me a little postcard afterwards, and it was a picture of him and Andre the Giant, and it was just like lovely to speak to you. Hopefully, see you when I'm in the UK. Da 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 da. And it was like a nice sort of little moment. And I was blown away. Like for me, wrestling in the '80s was a big thing. You know, he was in there with the big guys, the Hulk Hogan's and Andre the Giants and things. So for me, it was amazing. And then the next big interview, I suppose, was a couple of months ago. Was with Jed Shepherd, and that was the one that really sort of I thought, oh, I like this. I like doing this.
Uh, what drives you for the interview? I mean, what why I mean, what when when you pick out someone you talk to,
Mm.
what's the purpose behind it? What how do you pick the people you want to interview?
So I like to mix up people who maybe have had longevity and are having a sort of big success, and then interview people who maybe deserve lots of success. So it's all about kind of promoting horror creators and kind of getting. So that's why I'll do shorts and things like that, because hopefully I can get more eyes on the the channel, and then they can maybe watch, say, Jason Brown's films, who did Ghost Track, um or Brandon Scullion, who did he's done so many short films. He's amazing, like the New Hands, the guy for Gunner, who did Nightmare on Dream Street podcast. These are all people who I've watched their films, and I've Dylan Brown, who I interviewed recently. Like, I've watched their films, and they're so good and deserve a big audience. So I don't know if it's even possible I can make that happen, but I can do like I can help. If I can help the 1 or 2%, then that's great.
Yeah, that's how I look at it too. Al says poor Matt had to deal with him. Sorry,
Oh
mate.
yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's my
yeah.
favorite interview.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you. I take it back. Maybe the 8 questions I didn't have any ego, but when I did the Midnight Society, oh my God. Every single Sunday I got Al Lucard. He would send me a rider. He
Oh
wanted
my,
M&Ms, he wanted
yeah,
M&Ms, he wanted tea, he wanted
yeah.
snacks, he wanted fresh blood, and he also wanted he wanted a pole across the closet so he could hang upside down on.
Yeah.
The man
Oh,
had demands, I'm telling you.
yeah. He's difficult, isn't he? He's very difficult. Do you know that the thing is, the weird thing, I interviewed him, and then he interviewed me, and we spent hours and hours and hours talking, and we got so much in common that we've been kind of chatting and text based and other things. And obviously I've been on some of his watch alongs and things like that. And honestly, just the best 2 days back to back of just going, "Do you like that? Yeah, I like that. Do you like that? Yeah, I like that." And it was it was so much fun. And it's just really cool, because obviously I've been watching his videos before I knew him as a person. So obviously I knew he was a person slash bat. Um,
Well, half the
yeah,
time.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing the Midnight Society. Unfortunately, his day job, his people job, is very very intensive. So
Yeah,
he didn't have the time. But we still got records of us having a lot of fun on Sundays. That's for sure.
that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, that's so you just go based on on that's I guess that's I don't know how I do it. I think I sort of have more of the I think I have the more of the put the put the mud in your hand and throw it on the wall and whatever sticks you try to interview
Yeah. Well, that's
because
great too. But yeah, yeah, that's great too. I think
'cause I tell
because you
people
get nice surprises.
I tell people too, I says, I get asked, I can ask 100 people, but I get shot out of the saddle 98 times. But I still got
Yeah.
two out of it, so I go with the two that I got, and
Oh,
happy to do.
and it surprises me sometimes. Like the two people contacted me this week. Are you the guy that does interviews? And I was like, I guess. Why? And they were telling me about themselves, and I was like, yeah, yeah. So what? One's next Wednesday. There's a new sort of um kind of like horror host, kind of like Elvira slash Svengoolie kind of thing. And I'm doing my first live um, interview. He's called Hello Ian. And I watched his clips and it's so much fun. And basically loads of shorts from, I think, the Seattle area all together in like a kind of variety show. And him and his other characters so we're going to do that next week. And I think it's going to be in character. So that will be really good fun. That's like next Wednesday, I think.
That'll be
So
fun.
yeah.
I got
Yeah.
a horror host coming in next month, and I asked him to come in as a character too.
Oh, cool. Oh
Yeah.
man. I love that. I love that. He mentioned something about being a bit like Pee Wee Herman, and I was like, oh well, then definitely do it in character. That'll be amazing.
Oh yeah. Yes. Okay. Everybody saying goodbye to Al. He has to go back to work.
Get back to work.
Yeah, it's back to work. Says Al flies off like a bat. Poof.
He's just gone.
Oh man. Yeah. It's really interesting. Do you find yourself intimidated when you go to a bigger name and if you had if you interviewed David Howard Thornton, would you find yourself being a little bit intimidated and asking him, or is just one of those things where I'll just ask because the worst thing you can say is no, right?
Yeah, I think maybe when I was younger, I would have done, but I think now because moving out of like classroom and special needs and different things that I did, and now going into a new place every week or so, having to get to know people quickly. I don't have that kind of. I'm still self-aware enough to be a little bit like, don't make an idiot of yourself, but it doesn't concern me. I just think they're just people. So, like for example, we used to go to film festivals in Manchester just before lockdown, and a lot of them they're not on anymore. But we went to one, and I spent like an afternoon with Lawrence Harvey from Human Centipede, and we just had gin and chatted. And Luigi Cozzi was there, and he had Coke, and we had Coca-Cola, and don't want to get him in any trouble. We had Coca-Cola, and we had few beers with him, and then Lloyd Kaufman and his wife, and all these people. And I was just like, this is really friendly, and they're just really nice people. And if they weren't really nice people, then I probably wouldn't talk to them. So
Exactly.
just judge them on who they are when you approach them, or when you. Often, if you say to somebody, "Do you want a drink?" they're not going to say no, are they?
It's pretty easy to talk. I mean, working 10 years on live music, you get used to it real fast.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're just like you said, they're just people. It's just and you're right, like 99.9 of them are really, really nice people.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
let's
for
see,
sure.
let's see. That's roleplay people about Al. Yeah. Now, what's the one? What's the one? What's the one that you? What's the one? No, let's do this one instead. So, what are like the? If you could interview 5 people, because I like asking for
Ooh,
the interviewers. What 5
5.
people would you interview and why?
Can we do living or dead as like
Yeah, no, go living. Let's go for right now, because you have a
okay.
chance to get these people.
Oh man. I'd I'd like to interview Felissa Rose from Sleepaway Camp. I think she'd be really interesting because she's such a good advocate for horror, and it's such a great film. She's got such a great history with that film, and she just seems to support other people. In fact, she's in the New Hands, Brandon's film, who I interviewed recently, and she just sounds lovely. I'd like to interview Dario Argento. Probably need a translator, I guess, but uh, that would be great. I'm a massive Argento fan. Oh man, there's 2. See, I've got people like in my mind like Marlon Brando and Jeff Buckley and people who sadly aren't with us anymore. But I think like Rob Savage, who directed Host, I think he'd be really interesting to interview, kind of compare his experience to Jed, who wrote it with him, and obviously he's done Boogeyman recently, and he did, they did Dash Cam together and all those, and I think he's on the way to being. I think that they mentioned they're going to be doing some work with Sam Raimi as well, so that should be really interesting.
Yeah, Sam's been producing a lot of horror films.
Yeah, and he's become like a mentor to those two guys, and that really opened my eyes to how difficult it is in Britain to get that support. That you have to look abroad. It's impossible to kind of get that. Like Amicus has just made a comeback, but they're doing it all through Kickstarter.
Yeah,
Those are the big pillars of, and Hammer's coming back, but I think Hammer might have more of a chance because they've got the big impresario from musical theatre who's bought them, so he's got some sort of money behind him. But they're the two pillars, People I'd like to interview like Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, but sadly that's not happening. Um,
no.
there's so many. I think I'm just looking around my room at posters I've got on the wall and things. Oh, Frank Henenlotter, he'd be great.
Is there any young and British talent that you're high on?
Well, Jason Brown, who I interviewed, I think he kind of came up at the same time as Shane Meadows and of Dead Man's Shoes and all those kind of amazing films. And I think given some support and some money, I think Jason will do really, really well. There's a lot, but the problem is because of the way funding works and
Mm,
because of the way horror is looked at in the UK, certainly by the people who hold the purse strings, it's really difficult to get funding. They take the horror out of the film in order for it to be made. I mean, Jed Shepherd said it's two things. It's like costume dramas and poverty porn are the two things that kind of get made so that they can win BAFTAs. And
yeah,
that's
I heard
so
the
strange.
I heard the BFI will not donate any money or support any horror films.
No, and the last one that people always throw censor at you and say censor, but what they did, they gave the money afterwards to promote it and put the BFI label on it after it's all been made. So I learned a lot from that talk and it made me more determined to kind of promote and support British horror because it used to be that British horror was the bee's knees. And Host really reignited my love for British horror. Um, yeah, St Maud is a brilliant film, and I think Rose Glass is gonna be it's gonna be a superstar. I know a lot of people talk about Prano Bailey Bond, but I think people are
I
maybe
think
sleeping.
Morford Clark will be too. She went from
Yeah,
St. Maud, she went from St. Maud's to the Ring of Power. And I'm like, wow,
yeah,
that's like talk about a huge step up. I mean, you that's sort of like
man,
Tom Cruise type shit right there. Like flying on the side of the
yeah.
plane type of step. Um,
Oh yeah, for
I
sure.
like Saint Maud too. Saint Maud was really good. There's a lot of good English directors and actors out there. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, look at was it Todd Wheatley is now Ben Wheatley. Now
Oh yeah, Ben.
he's gone from directing small indies. Now he's doing Hollywood big huge budgets.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's a kind of testament to what it's great, and I'm really excited. I've still not seen the Meg 2, but it's exciting and it's great. It's just it kind of gives you an idea of what you have to do to be successful if you're a British filmmaker who's that good. I mean, Shane Meadows has managed to plow his own furrow in the UK for so long and just make brilliant film after brilliant film. The guy is out of this world, come from like absolute nothing. Some of that was through like schemes and funding through colleges and things like that he was at. But I mean,
what do you feel about crowdfunding? What's your
um,
opinion? What's your opinion?
I think it's great. I think it's great if it's helping somebody who there's no other avenue, and they don't have those kind of links and connections within the business. So for example, there's a film, Lights Over Montgomery County, that I somehow ended up helping out with, and I'm not acting, so I'm no actor. I was pretty much playing myself in the film, and we we were talking about that, and he's made that film on $500, and his Indiegogo, Dustin Tamplin is called. His Indiegogo is essentially to upgrade his equipment. That's all he's trying to do. I don't know. How do you feel about it? What do you think about it?
Man, I gotta be honest with you. I had such mixed emotions because
Hmm.
like I mean, I see a lot. I mean, I see a lot of the same people. They're doing horror movies, but it seems like every horror movie they do, they're crowdfunding for it. And it's just like,
Yeah.
man, that's just like over and again. We got a great idea. We're gonna be doing this. Can't wait to start it, but we need you to do it. And it's just like, wow,
Mm,
every project
sure.
is like, to me, it's like, man, that works like the first 3 or 4 times, but after
Yeah.
that, man, you should be established enough to get a little bit of
Mm.
more of a
I
boost.
never thought about that. I never thought about that until you just said it. That's really interesting. Because I used to always the first thing I ever kickstarted was Mystery Science Theater when they did the revival,
Right.
and I got the DVD sent over because it's hard to get them over here anyway, and hard to kind of to watch a lot of them. But the latest one that they did, I ended up watching it on Pluto, before the box set arrived. So I was a bit like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this mass because I have pared down a lot of my physical media.
Mm.
Um, like the only things that I have are things that I love. I used to have everything I bought, I kept. Um, and yeah, but I did think when they were doing it, I was like, it's a great way to keep that brand going. But there's millions of people who love and support Mystery Science Theater. So I don't know. It's interesting. I suppose it's just a different way of being like a subscriber based thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, yeah, you're right. It's almost like here. It's almost like with YouTube, like you get a certain amount of followers and watch hours and then you turn around and it's funny. Here's the funny thing is you work your ass off to get the 1,000 subscribers. You work your ass off to get the 4,000 watch hours. Um, and that gets you the right. You've earned the right to turn around to ask your same followers and the same subscribers to go ahead and send you money.
Yeah.
You
Mm,
know, that's what
yeah.
we're all working for.
That's the
Because
dream.
we ain't gonna make it. We ain't making it on YouTube. You know,
No.
I mean,
I've only just looked at the studio app recently, and I'm conscious of the fact that I have the kind of personality that really gets into things quite intensely. Um, I don't want to find myself checking constantly, and looking at those different things. And I want to kind of, and this is probably a bit idealistic, but kind of just focus on the fact that the intention of this is to get eyes on people,
yes.
who I want to do well.
That's all
Um,
I want too, Matt. It's really,
yeah,
I really try I really tried my hard, and my heart is to bring people onto the show that a lot of people have never heard of. There's people out there, there's me, I'm doing that. The House of Horses doing it, who just walked in through the door. That's so weird.
yeah.
There's your channel, Mike.
Thank you.
Did you see that? Even Brian from Dragon Guy, he does interviews now.
Sure.
There's more and more people doing it.
Yeah.
John Henderson from Doomsday Crypt, he's got some really good guests on. He had a Friday the Third Nightmare on Elm Street reunion show on his.
Oh
And
wow.
yes, I mean, it was like,
That's
man, this
amazing.
is awesome. Um,
Yeah.
it just really, I don't know, it just frosts me a little bit that, you know, we talk about horror all the time. It's really weird to me. It's like, you could go ahead and say, well, here's what's coming at the store, and you'll have like 300 people there watch what's coming in at the store, or like I got this 4K, and that's great. I love that. I do. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, but at the same time it's like,
Excitement,
but at the same time though,
fandom.
isn't the excitement in watching the movie itself?
True. Yeah, like opening unboxing and opening I think is kind of filtered down from every kind of, and not there's anything,
No.
sometimes it's really cool to see them open that at that moment. And I saw a really good one recently of somebody getting like an Elvira figure, and I was just like, oh, that was really cool, and it surprised me, and I was like, oh, that looks really awesome. But I think it just filters down through, maybe we're all guilty of it. There are things within YouTube that are kind of like trends that are kind of almost, you do them by osmosis. I'm doing like a little thing at the moment where I'm following like a little, almost like a social experiment to see about the impact of how my shorts, that sounds very strange, how my short videos, how they work if I release them a certain time, a certain day, certain type, um, in terms of how that's going to get eyes on the other things that I really want people to see. Not that I don't want people to see the shorts, but then some of the shorts take me ages to do, and then
Mm.
some of them take me a couple of seconds. And there seems to be a real disparity between the ones that take a couple of seconds, thousands of people look at them, and the ones that take me ages, about 10 people look at them.
Yeah, it was funny. It's like every after, like I'm always telling this to Steven, and I try to build out every interview. Like, you put the links in for all their social medias.
Mhm.
I make playlists for everything I do. Like I do blocks of 25 shows.
Yeah,
And it's like that's not too, for if you're looking for something to watch, like
that's
watch
a
or
lot.
listen
Yeah,
to.
yeah,
That's awesome. You can turn on 25 episodes and get lost.
yeah.
It's great. Um,
I
uh,
like the podcast element of things now as well. I've made all my interviews I put into a podcast playlist. So, and that does get quite a few people listening because it does. Some of them are audio, some of them are video, but they all work on an audio level.
right.
I engage with podcasts quite a lot, so I was thinking, oh, I hope other people do as well in this, with some of these interviews. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted.
No, no, I do the same thing. I find myself going like I have to go back and redo and look at every single interview I did and reconnect it and touch it up and clean it up. And because to me, when the way I surf YouTube, and of course this is all subjective, is like I will literally go from one video to another. I mean, I'll go to yours, I'll watch something from yours,
Hmm.
and then there'll be someone in the comment section to say something fun, like a good comment. Then I'll click
Hmm.
on that channel. I'll go to their channel and then I'll go to
That's
their
cool.
channel. I just go from bounce to bounce.
Yeah,
I
that's how
I
I find people like Horror Cat Dad, and that's how I found JT's movie reviews, and through funny comments or comments on mine or Al's, and then I've kind of gone down that rabbit hole and found different people. Or I was watching Carrie Crave Cinema yesterday doing Carrie Crow's movie,
nothing.
sorry, Buffy. Yeah, and that was really interesting because it took me right back to watching Buffy, which I haven't watched since they were first on years and years ago.
Yeah, I love her series. I applauded her for it, and I think our friend Echo, he's gonna do one too. He's gonna do a deep dive. I like
Oh,
doing
and
deep
Buffy.
dives.
Oh, cool.
Deep dives are fun. Of all the
Yeah.
reviews, see, I know a lot. I know everybody says, "Let me catch up with Star Lord here." It took me 3 years working on edits, than other editors put me in blast, claiming on their community posts that I'm stealing their content. Um, yeah, I don't. I saw somebody did that too. Someone actually blasted somebody for stealing content, and they had. That's the thing is, so they did steal it. I mean, they
It's
put it
tricky,
side by
isn't it?
side.
Because
Yeah.
if I did something recently where the background is of a stained glass horror thing, and then the person who made them obviously is not me, and I've mixed it with like a template, but then I've put a link on the thing of where to buy that item from that person, and it's had a couple of thousand people look at it who maybe 10 of those might actually go and buy that item. So my idea really is, if I can give credit, if I know where something came from, I'm going to give credit. I'm going to make sure that in the same way as doing an interview with somebody, you want to put all the links to their things. I've took the same approach with shorts. Now, if somebody was to say to me, I don't want that up, then I'll just take it down. Like
Sure.
it doesn't, I've not got an issue with that. I'm not precious about it.
I've been
Um,
really fortunate. No one's ever asked me to take anything down yet.
same. Yeah, that's unfortunate that that's happened. Really.
When I ask them, say, like, I'll say we'll book the show, and then I'll say I'm just gonna borrow a picture from your Facebook, from your Facebook
Like
or
mine.
Instagram, and they and
Ma-
they say that's fine, and I make sure that all the pictures are. I mean, there's some pictures that have been very sassy. I mean, I won't
what?
lie to you. Some of the actresses and whatnot. I mean, there's some really great pictures out there that would just grab you right away. But I don't use those pictures. I always use
Yeah.
like no, I always use
I'm
headshots.
glad you didn't use my sassy pictures because well, for one, I don't have any, and to be honest, the first thing, the picture that you've got of me on the video is really funny because I drove from where I live now, right on the towards Scotland way, down to London to watch my football team, and I did it there and back without any real breaks. And I was absolutely exhausted. And that's the first picture I took when I arrived. So you can see this kind of drained man in the picture.
I loved it. I like that picture very much. It was cool because it just shows you right there with I can
Wembley.
tell right there like you're very passionate about your football team.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
Wembley Stadium, all right.
now you also review horror films. So I mean, obviously we just heard about Saint Maud. We both talked about that and Rose Glass. I agree with you about Rose Glass. I
Mhm.
can't wait to see what she comes up next.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for Ashley Clark to come out with her new movie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yes, yes.
There's a few. I don't know what Prano Bailey Bond is doing because everyone was just on the Censor train when Censor came out. It was huge over here. Certainly within horror circles, there's a podcast, The Evolution of Horror, which is very, very good. And they were just in raptures about it. And you see people wearing Prano Bailey Bond t-shirts, which you don't get about many sort of directors or certainly new directors. So yeah, I don't know what she's doing um, to kind of follow up Censor, but again, I think that one. I don't know actually. I'm interested in finding out, but she'll be making something, I'm sure. Um,
Women directors are really, man. If you honestly, if you really think about it, I mean, women directors, man, they are starting to really, they're really starting to take horror. They're starting to take over.
yeah,
They really
and
are.
rightfully so, because if you think of people like Deborah Hill in the past, she gave those voices to female characters in Halloween, or even like Sigourney Weaver being strong enough to suggest things for her character because she was that character and cared about that character. These are the kind of laying the groundwork when it was really hard to be a woman in horror
Mhm.
or in any film director
You're right. Anything.
capacity. Certainly, like James Cameron and Ridley Scott having that kind of foresight, and particularly James Cameron, because I think what he did, he would take away all the natural things that would be in films to protect women. So there was no like, there was like Ripley had to deal with these things head on herself. So that's quite unusual and made her become an icon. But sadly, there wasn't a lot of that afterwards. We still continued down the Arnie and Sly, and
Uh,
which is has its audience and is great. And I
yeah,
love Rocky
I
films
love
and
the
all, but
movies. I mean, hell, I mean, I say, but I mean, I still think there's room for those movies today. I mean, certainly.
yeah,
I mean, we talked to an actor named Alexander Nesky. And that guy is a complete throwback to the Arnie and Rock, and
yeah,
Sylvester Stallone days and Van Damme days, and he's damn good at it. He's really good at it.
yeah.
I watched him in several of his films, and he's fantastic.
Look at the
Um,
success of John Wick, and from essentially from fight choreography to making a film. It's Chad Stahelski, isn't it? And but even in the last one, oh, my mind's gone blank. But I'm trying to think of the English martial artist that I
oh,
really like. Who what's the sorry?
Scott Atkins.
Scott Atkins, of course. Yeah. Well, I don't know why I had a brain fart, but yeah, he was great and he's really funny as well in the latest John Wick.
You know what's funny? I'll tell you. Sorry about that. I tell you what's
No.
really funny about that role too is like, man, there's a lot of us that are because tell me if as a reviewer and someone who interviews, man, like I watch some of these movies and I see Scott Atkins. I like Scott Atkins. I really do. I
Me
think he makes
too.
some good movies, but
Underrated.
I always feel like he's racing the clock. It's like, yes, he can come out there, he can do another Jesse Johnson movie. Yes, he could do that. But at the same time, I'm thinking, man, he needs to have a bigger audience. He needs a bigger chance. He's like, he can't just keep doing these straight to video movies. He needs to get, and
That's a good
him,
point.
Michael J. White as well. They do all these straight to video movies and their fans buy them up and they eat them up. but the general audience does not know, and you're sitting there going like, "You guys
Yeah.
should know because he's badass."
That's the
And
frustrating thing, isn't it? Because he did. I remember watching a he sort of put his own audition for Batman on the internet because he was like, I can do this. This is the sort of thing I can do. He was just basically buying his own, tickets, and he was saying, I can do this. Look at me, do this. So he's obviously not getting those opportunities to stretch himself, and he's having to take whatever he can get. I don't know.
well,
Unless I don't know.
I thought he did a I mean, think about what he had to do for John Wick 4.
Mm.
That was an acting role, not a fighting role.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was
You
really
know?
funny
It
and really
really
good.
it really it was like, it's like, yes, it could come in there, he could do the Donnie Yen role, but it's just
Yeah,
then people just see him as just another it's just Scott Adkins being Scott Adkins. But
and
then
that
he went ahead
film's sorry, go ahead.
and then he went ahead, he says, "I'm not gonna do that. Let's do that." Then they had him play the role, he's in a bodysuit. If you didn't know who he was, you would never recognize him.
No, no, you wouldn't, and it's a 2 hour 49, nearly 3 hour film. So to be memorable in that film is a testament to him. I guess a testament to the sort of costume and makeup department and special effects and what have you. But yeah, because there were moments of that film because it's a long film. I'm
Yeah.
of the kind of hour and a half film school. Especially from when I was doing writing myself, I found it hard enough to write an hour of something. Like just so
I tell you what's disappointing to me though is the fact that they made a big deal about this, and it's a little concerning in the fact that they're counting how many words that Keanu Reeves said. It's like
oh,
they equate
didn't
his
know that.
like in the first one's the best one, the first
Yeah,
John Wick. That one
I,
has the
I
most
like
heart.
I like the first one. I have a real soft spot for the second one. I think the
Yeah,
second one is really, really good. Um,
yeah.
and I think I went back and watched the first one again after watching the second one because I enjoyed it so much. I think the first one's probably a better film. The second one has everything that you would want from that series in it. It's a real event. It's a great one to watch at the cinema. I think I watched that in an empty cinema. Uh,
Wow.
yeah.
Uh, I I got I mean we covered the Witch movies for
Oh yeah.
Midnight Society. I love the first one. I thought the first one was but then I thought the first one had the most heart. It was
It's
exciting.
true.
I mean, then they
Yeah.
started talking about how how less and less that Keanu Reeves was speaking in the movies. It's
Yeah.
like he only has 700 words. It's like, man, it's
He
like
tells the story though, doesn't he? He tells the
uh,
story really, really well. So
sometimes. I mean, I
mm.
thought it sort of evolved into a video game. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that, like I say, for me, a 2 hour 49 movie is too long.
Yeah,
And if a lot of that is fighting, then yeah, I totally get your point.
yeah,
I
I
think with
could
the
totally
second
agree
one,
with
that's
you.
why it surprised me how much I stayed with it for that whole. Maybe it's because I was sat in the cinema. I don't know. There's a difference sometimes when you can't be distracted as easily. I find that quite difficult. Now I live so far away from the cinema. I used to live 10 minutes away. Now I'm out in the sort of out in the sticks.
Mm,
It's an event when I go, whereas it used
yeah.
to be I go all every week. So yeah, it's harder to make myself focus at home and watch something, even if I'm in it. Even like that film where I was in it a little bit, I was still like, put your phone down, watch the film. It's a really good film.
Uh, I yeah, I tell people all the time the last movie I saw at the theater was It Part Two. That was it. That's the last movie I went to the
Oh.
theater.
Do you know I've
Everything
still
else,
not seen that? I've still not seen that. I saw the first one at the cinema
oh,
and I was like, "Oh, I'll get around to it." And I never got
the
round
first
to it.
one's fantastic. The
Hmm.
first one's fantastic. Now that was a movie that surprised me because, I read the book, I saw the miniseries,
Mm.
and then here they come with the movie, and everybody's talking about Pennywise and Skarsgård and who has played the bad guy in the John Wick 4, by the way.
Of
Um,
course.
and they're all talking about him, and then I came out of the movie with like 20 other people, and you know what we talked about? We were talking about how freaking creepy Bev Marsh's dad was. He stole
Oh
the movie.
yeah,
He was
yeah,
creepy as hell. I mean,
man,
yeah, it was like Pennywise who?
horrible. Yeah,
It was
isn't it funny how these characters? It's a bit like we were watching Sleepaway Camp 2 the other night on JT's channel, and I referenced the chef in the first Sleepaway Camp, how odious and disgusting and slimy he was, and how memorable that character was, and the juxtaposition between her being such a little girl and him being this horrible, nasty, disgusting person, and instantly memorable. And it's funny how those characters, because they really do hit home because they're
Mhm.
so odious and just make
And
skin
the
crawl.
and they're real. I mean,
Yeah,
her dad, yes, that's a real life right there. I mean, Pennywise is a fantasy, but when you
yeah.
talk about Bev and her dad, that's like, yeah, I could see that happening. You know, that could be happening in next door to me. That could be
Well,
happening.
this is the thing. It's why I struggle with any film with children or animals, things happening. To I steer away. And to be honest, I can't even watch something. This is going to be sound really silly for horrible. I can't even watch something like say Marley and Me because I don't know if this is a spoiler, but I've not read the book or seen the film. But I imagine the dog dies. So
Yeah,
like, I don't want to watch that film
yeah.
because it's too sad. It's too much for me. I can yeah,
Oh
I can
no,
watch
I'm with you.
yeah, it's too
Yeah,
much.
I'm with you. There's some movies that I can't handle either. Even
Yeah.
today. I mean, it was funny because we're talking about Buffy, and then and I said, are you gonna watch? Are you gonna cover Angel afterwards? And she says, I've never
Mm,
seen Angel, so I'm gonna watch it. I said, have you seen Angel? And I'm going like, yeah. I says, there's some episodes I can't watch anymore. It's just
yeah.
way too raw for me. But
Yeah, and there's a couple of actors in there as well who are no longer with us, and quite shocking because they were right in the middle of those roles. I think
um, he played
Some
Doyle. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and then you had the demon who was like the lounge singer demon guy whose name I forget.
Andy Hallett, I think his name was.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like it always shocks you when you're invested in a series over a long period of time when something like that happens. Um, yeah, it's always a bit of a. It just reminds you that it's um, real people. You know, it takes you out of the fantasy of the film. I think a little bit, and it. Yeah, I've yeah, it's strange though. Having said that, most of the films I watched,
It's
people are no
funny because
longer with us.
it's funny because we have your favorite actors and you're sitting there watching them and it's like, you see them and it's really weird. I don't know if this has happened to you yet, but I will tell you a fascinating fact about when I do some of my interviews. When I do some of my interviews, like I did one with Alexis O'Connor. So she and I'm a huge ISC fan, right? I'm a huge ISC fan, and so I went ahead and I was on a website and I bought this movie called Blue Caprice, and I hadn't watched it yet, but I had it, and then I saw that she was in it. So we're talking about her role in Blue Caprice, and she said that her character got changed. She was going to be playing one role, and then she got changed to another. Hey, Katie, how are you? And Ava says she loves Buffy and Angel. Me too. I
Yeah,
definitely am a huge Angel fan. And
yeah, I
yeah,
was really into it. Good music too.
yeah, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, but I had a man crush on Alexis Denisof, and I challenge anybody else, any other one who's honest with themselves who didn't have a man crush on Denisof. That's right. That's right. Uh, yeah, he was a badass in that show. Um, but so she stars in this movie. But her character gets killed, right? She gets,
Mm.
it's based on the Washington D.C. sniper case. Her
Oh,
character gets
okay.
killed, right? You know what's funny, Matt? Uh, After we are talking about that movie and whatnot, I can't find myself. I can't bring myself to watch it.
Right.
I can't bring
Yeah.
myself to watch it. Uh, you know, when you interview people and like there's memorable scenes from different movies.
Hmm.
Now, when you talk to the people, though there are some badass stories behind some of them, but
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it's like yeah, I can't watch that person do that now because it's like I talk to them, I know them, we communicate, and it's just like it's like, yeah, I can't watch you die, you know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just I can't do that, and I can't do that anymore. It's like
I get that, and I mean, it's a very small scale thing, but like sometimes if somebody reaches out and wants me to interview them, and I haven't seen any of their things, I really want to like their films, particularly if we've got on like a house on fire and messaged each other and got to know each other. I really want to like their films. I've been lucky where I feel like I can appreciate how hard it is to make a film for a start, and also look at I can find something positive in most things. There's some things that will just irrationally enrage me, but 9 times out of 10, I will watch a film and there'll be something in there that's admirable or creative or something I can go, oh, that's really good. I love that part or that thing.
Now
Yeah.
that's the part about doing interviews and being from what's one thing being a film reviewer, right?
Mm.
You can sit there and say this movie's awesome, it's great, or this movie sucks, I hated it. But it's a
Mm.
little different when you find yourself interviewing someone whose movie you watched. And
Mhm.
you know, I've learned now, and you still can stay honest. I mean, you still can stay
Yeah,
true.
yeah, I
But
think that's really important. Yeah, there's no
I
point just buttering someone up.
No, no, you're not doing them any good. You're not doing them any disservice. You're not doing them any good.
Yeah.
There's a movie I recently watched, and I had the filmmaker on, um, and I told the filmmaker, I says, I just thought the music in the movie, I just thought it was a little bit jarring, disjointed. He says, I was trying to tell a story with it. I'm like, okay, I can respect that, totally respect that,
Yeah, yeah, you gotta
but it just didn't work for me. I
yeah.
was just like, yeah. The last 10 minutes of the movie was great. The score was great. I was like, hell yes. But before, I just couldn't get into it, you know.
And
But I
often,
have,
sorry, go on.
but I told him that, it's like,
Yeah,
you know, and
I think
it's like,
that's important.
now that's the hardest part to me as a interviewer goes, is to be
Yeah.
candid. Is to be candid. It's going like now to a point because there is a rule, and this is how I look at it. I might not like if I don't like somebody's movie, if I don't like
Mhm.
somebody's movie, I'm not gonna tell them that. It's not my job to tell them that. My job is to talk to them about how they made the film.
Yeah.
But if I don't like a film, or if I don't like a performer's role in that film, I either keep my mouth shut, or I keep my mouth shut about it,
Mhm.
or I stay neutral. I
Yeah.
had a chance to interview Jamie Bernadette, and she did a movie she did the direct sequel to I Spit on Your Grave.
Ah.
I
Ah.
had a chance to get that movie for $5 and watch the movie before I did my interview.
Yeah.
I did neither. I didn't buy the movie because I didn't wanna see it, and I never
Yeah.
asked her anything about the movie because I didn't wanna see it. Now that's
Ah.
you know,
It's funny
that's
you mentioned that film because we are doing, um, there are things in the offing, keep your what is it, eyes to the skies or something about video nasties with myself and Al. So I don't want to say too much, but yeah, so that should be really
Oh,
cool.
yeah, I think Al does most of his job. I mean, is it gonna be in the morning or in the morning? Are you
I'm
are
not.
you
We've not set anything in stone yet. We've just been bouncing ideas and film titles, but it's just so strange because we were talking about "I Spit on Your Grave" yesterday. So it just sounds like you're insulting somebody though when you say it, don't you? I spit on your grave. You're like, oh, thanks a
Oh,
lot.
I
Uh,
just couldn't watch that movie, and I
It's going
had
to
a
be a tough one for me, I think, because I've not
well,
seen it
what made
before.
it really rough for me too is, I knew somebody who knows her
Mhm.
and knows about the shoot, and Jamie is a method actress,
Right.
and my source said, that it was very, very rough shoot. It was a very rough
Yeah.
shoot,
Well,
very rough.
things that went on to get. It's even you look at something mainstream like like The Exorcist. You know, so many injuries. to
Mhm.
children and adults within that film, mental and physical, and you wouldn't be able to do that. And I was saying this to somebody the other day. If you've got like a young auteur in their mid-30s who has a singular vision, the film might end up being absolutely brilliant, but they often don't have that consideration for the impact on the people who are helping make that film with them.
So like
And
Kubrick with The Shining.
yeah, exactly. Or if I'm going to be really mean and bring up, so he's like John Landis,
Oh,
you know, like every time I see his name pop up, I find it very hard to get on board. He's made some great films. Not all of them are my favorite films, so it might be a bit easier for me. But people forget what happened during that Twilight Zone. Um, you know,
Yeah, and it's funny. It's like now like every time someone mentions the director of Victor Salva of the Jeepers Creepers,
yes.
everybody gets their panties up in a bind over it, right?
Mhm.
Everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
In a really ironic twist, he's the only one to actually ever served time for his crime. John Landis
Right.
didn't go to jail for manslaughter or negligence. He didn't go to
Mm.
jail. Roman Polanski, he still continued to make films.
Yeah.
He still make, he still has a career, and I just find the selective out, and people still like him, and look at Stanley Kubrick. Look what he did to Shelley Duvall. He broke that woman. He
Mm.
broke her in two.
Yeah. It's interesting because then you're thinking, not that I'm going to be in a position to interview John Landis or whoever, but I think I'm strong enough in my morals that all of those people we mentioned, I would not want to interview any of them equally.
I was gonna ask you this: would you be afraid? Would you be afraid to interview them to ask questions? Because I tell you what, I'm not. That's one thing I will say right now. I'm not afraid to ask the questions.
I think I
And
would
I don't
quite
think
happily ask the
I think
questions, but
I don't, they might not
I don't
answer them, but
exactly.
I'm gonna at least I'm gonna ask. I'm
Yeah,
gonna.
I guess there's a conversation to be had about if you do ask those questions and they kind of sandbag it or give it a certain spin. Like I'm always conscious of like platforming somebody who maybe doesn't deserve that. And to be quite honest, this is more in my day job sometimes where I'm like I have to listen more and more and make notes and make notes, and I selectively leave things out that just don't kind of fit with what I'm looking for because the person's maybe not as I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. They're talking to you in a way that is possibly too open, and you think, oh,
Mm,
say I'll give you an example, like a director telling you that their films are all terrible and why they're terrible in detail because they're quite um they like beat themselves up over the things that they couldn't do in the film. I sometimes think, well, hang on a minute. I've watched this film and I don't think those things. You were acutely aware of those things because you made it. Because it's not
well,
very fair. So I
there are
sometimes leave those things out.
there are some directors who I know that like I just it's funny because on one hand you're sitting there and like, okay, I'd like to interview this person, but the other hand is like, it's like we got sent some of us got sent movies to review from a company, and we reviewed them, and for the most part they're not very good.
Mhm.
Once in a while you'll get a good one, but most of the time they weren't very good at all. And so sometimes I get as many as 10 movies to watch and review. Man,
Mhm.
I probably reviewed maybe 2, 3 out of the stack, 20, 30%. The rest
Yeah.
of them just they just were bad. And I didn't review them because I knew they were bad. You can see everybody else was just shitting on them already. And the way I looked at it was, why add to that? It's like
Yeah.
there's nothing I can say that's gonna save this movie. The
No.
movie's bad already. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn around and concentrate on the movies that I liked,
Yeah.
or at least were tolerable. That like
Yeah.
because where do you feel the role as of a film reviewer is? What is the role of a reviewer? Is it just expressing an opinion? Do you feel like when you review a film, that's what you're offering people? it's your opinion. This is my opinion about this movie, and you're welcome to read it. Or
Well,
do you feel like an obligation?
that's a really tough question because I did study film criticism, and what I found hardest about it was that there was a very much set in stone structure of what I needed to do when I was writing a review, certainly a written one, and or it was before things like YouTube and people could just kind of have that platform. Um, I think I think you've got to, if you want to have any credibility, you've got to be honest about it. But I think you've also got to appreciate how difficult it is to make a film full stop. Try and anticipate what the intention of the creator is. So sometimes it is very clear that the intention isn't, there isn't an artistic intention there. And sometimes there is. That doesn't matter if you enjoyed it. So it's kind of just finding that balance, but ultimately you've got to be credible. So you've got to kind of say what you think, but also be mindful of the fact that somebody has possibly, not always, but possibly poured their heart and soul into it.
Hmm.
So I love quote unquote bad movies. I love The Room. I love Miami Connection, Ben and Arthur. All these terrible, terrible, but hilarious and engaging and fun films. Now, do I sometimes feel a bit guilty that I don't know, because if I'm usually when I'm talking about them, I'm with my friends, we're just chatting, we're watching a bad movie for like we've done for the last 20, 30 years or whatever.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, like Tommy Wiseau put his heart and soul into making The Room. He unintentionally made a classic film that is not
No, it's
the
horrible.
classic yeah, it's not a classic in the way he intended it to be
No.
taken. Um, but I don't
But
know. It's
that guy
hard.
he's so deluded though. That's the thing about it. That is,
Yeah, that's the
I call
hard thing I'm trying to work out. Yeah, whether he
that,
care
but
less if
some
what
movies
I
are
think.
like that. I mean, some movies are like that. They're just, I call them bulletproof because I mean, you could sit out there and slingshot them, and everything you throw is going to bounce off. People don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah,
Um,
and he's not like he couldn't. I'm sure he couldn't care less what I think about it or what anybody thinks about it to a certain degree. But I'd imagine the first time it got a bad reaction or a laugh or laughs from people, that really did hurt because I submit short screenplays and scripts to little competitions, and I haven't done that until recently. I've been kind of inspired again maybe 10, 15 years after I did my last one. Um, I did it because I was inspired by the people I've been chatting to, and they've kind of encouraged me, particularly Brandon Scullion, one of the guys I interviewed who does great short films. So he gave me the software, and because I was so out of date with all the software that's being used now, and I submitted it, and waiting for that feedback was horrendous, and then reading it was even worse. Um, Part of you just wants the person to say it's great, and if they don't say it's great, then I don't want to know. But then equally, you do want to learn and get better at what you're doing. Luckily, the two film festivals that I sent them to, both of them gave me a pretty much down the line pros and cons that I luckily I agree with all of them. So I
have
agree
you
with the cons.
have you met Tom Jalopy yet?
No.
Oh, I'll have to hook you guys up. He
Okay.
writes for he still writes for Flickering Myth, and
Oh yeah, I
yeah,
read that. I read that. Yeah.
he still writes for Flickering Myth, and he's also a screenwriter.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah,
I mean, I'm not by
really nice
no
guy.
means. I mean, like Al's somebody who's super creative, and we've kind of bonded on that. He's written things in the past, and understands the kind of the mechanics of film, and I think that does help when you're reviewing things. But also, you can have people who haven't got that background, and their view is just as interesting and just as valid. And sometimes it's more to do with their reviews and maybe more entertaining, and you know that's got loads of value too. Like it's okay to like a movie, it's okay to just chat about that movie, and if the other person, if you're the one in 100 who likes it, oh great, more power to you.
Starler mentioned some screenings often review and things get changed in a movie. Yes, that
Mm,
is true.
yeah,
In fact, I
yeah.
think we're seeing that with the new Exorcist movie. They did a
Mm,
test screening of it a few months ago, and
right.
the crowd was not into it at all. So they had to take it. What's that saying from Spider-Man? Take it back to formula. They had to
Yeah.
go back there and they had to go back there to fix it.
Mm.
But I
I
mean,
felt like that about the trailer, to be honest. There were parts of that trailer that I was like, "Yeah, that's amazing." And there's parts of that trailer I was like, "Oh, this looks like everything else."
uh,
And I think the issue with Danny McBride and writing, there's always a humor element that sometimes is quite jarring to the films, as we saw, I think, in the Halloween things. So
mhm.
I think, I don't know, maybe I'm putting it at his door. I mean, there's a director there as well, and they're best pals and they write it together. But for me, there's like sometimes a little bit jarring. And I'm not holding out a lot of hope
I'm not either.
for it. But I'd love to be proven wrong.
Um, yeah, it's I agree with that. I don't think I don't know. I don't have any hope. Totally screwed up Halloween. They had a golden opportunity to really get that to do it right. Halloween Ends could have been such a classic movie if they just
Yeah,
would have followed through. And man, oh man, and the worst part. I mean, if you could screw up a movie, you found a way to do it. You
yeah.
took
There's
you
some
took
great
it.
moments, and
Yeah,
yeah,
you just ruined that whole Halloween Ends. Halloween Kills, fantastic. A lot of breadcrumbs, a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of possibilities, and then you
yeah.
come up with Halloween Ends, and it's just like,
Well, when we watched the second the second the original series, we watched the second one recently for the podcast, and it made me have like a kind of, oh, I was like, of course that, and it kind of tied in the second one from the David Gordon Green trilogy, and I kind of, because it had been so long since I'd seen the second one. I mean, you're not going to respect me now, but my favorite in the whole thing is Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. That's my favorite.
mine too, mine too.
Ah, you
Yeah.
legend. I knew there was a reason I
That's
watched
my
that show.
favorite one too. It's so cool, and that's the thing is too. They could have had that in Halloween Ends, and they dropped the ball. They could have had, they
Yeah.
sprinkled little clues in the first two, but then they
Oh, for
totally forgot
sure.
it for the third one. It's like, wow, you could have had your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
You could have had Lori have her ending and still have Michael still active, but you totally
Yeah.
dropped the ball. It's just like it's just no. I have no. I'm scared. I'm scared for The Exorcist, but it's not going to take anything away from it. And it's
No.
funny too. It's funny. It's like I watched this last night. I was really curious about it so bad that I went down to the library and I rented it. The
Oh, yes, I've not seen that either, no.
Yeah, this was so much fun.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and and,
I
and
was like that about it, whether to check it out, but I will now you said that.
Yeah, I was really surprised at how much I really enjoyed it, but I'm a big Russell Crowe fan as it is. So I was like,
Yeah,
okay, I'll watch it because Russell Crowe's in it. And I was
yeah,
not expecting very much from it. Sony's behind it. It's like major studio. I mean, how
yeah.
how scary could it be? It wasn't really necessarily scary, but it was a good story and quite
Mhm.
a different one. A little bit daring for a studio movie, quite honestly. And
Oh,
I
cool.
really enjoyed it. Um,
I'll have to check that out. I love Russell Crowe. I mean, for me, Russell Crowe, um, I know he did Romper Stomper, and I'd watched that, but when that moment in LA Confidential where he breaks the barrier with his hand and rushes into the room in the police station and beats up the guy, he's got so much raw
mhm.
energy and anger and frustration. Like, it was like, this guy is a star. This guy is a
Oh yeah.
star. You
He's
know,
good in everything he does. Remember the Dark Universe that they're trying to launch with
oh
the
yeah,
Tom
yeah.
Cruise mummy? Oh my
Mm,
god, I was like, he just stole that movie. Russell
mm.
Crowe and Mr. Jekyll and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He stole the
Interesting,
movie.
isn't it? How
Oh my
that could have
god, how
got,
could
how
they?
that whole thing could have gone. I mean, this is where we are now, isn't it? You know, we're looking at Universal. Obviously, that didn't play out the way they hoped. We've got a resurgence of Hammer. Uh, Hopefully, a resurgence of
What do you think?
Amicus.
How
Hopefully,
you think? I think I'm with you on that though, Matt. I don't really have much really hope for that, because if you're depending on people to fund it,
Mm.
that means you're gonna be channeling out a lot of really low budget crap.
Yeah, and the thing is that what Amicus did so well was it was like a little factory in a tiny little shed. And but it was, an American guy with connections and ideas and British people who are keen to work in more than one film for the same people. And they just kind of built this little, it wasn't even on the same scale as Hammer. So like Hammer's the go-to. This is why sometimes when I talk about British films, and I'm doing a podcast with a guy who asked for five of my favorite British horror films, and I deliberately didn't do Hammer or Amicus because I was like, I want to do five that maybe people haven't seen. So like the Living Dead from Manchester Morgue, Theatre of Blood. These are films that people maybe haven't seen. Satan's Slave by Norman Warren, Pete Walker films. These are all incredible films from mainly from the 70s. But if people can get past the fact they're from the 70s, which sometimes they have to, then they're going to be blown away because there's some incredible films.
Uh, yeah, I like that too. You know what? That gets me. Probably gets me more than anything else. A lot of people, when I see people talk about the '80s and '90s, they'll mention a movie and they'll say this movie's underrated, and I'm like, how can it be underrated? They re-release the son of a bitch once every 4 months by some boutique label. How can you sit there? Someone said that yesterday. I was in a stream and they were saying that The Mist is underrated. The Mist is talked
Mm.
about all the freaking time.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
the time. You can't
It's
get away
hard.
from it.
It's hard, isn't it? Because, like, for instance, how, like, The Thing, for example, most people love The Thing, think it's amazing, and John Carpenter was just so worn out at the end of it, and some of the criticism of it at the time was so scathing, and he put so much into it. He was just like, "I'm never doing anything like that again." He didn't get that gratification. It's mad to think that
No.
there's millions of people posting videos about how great it is in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the movie. I liked it a lot. It was interesting. The ending was very 70s.
Mhm.
Very had a very 70s ending to it. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think the effects hold up today, of course, but the story does, and the acting is really good.
Yeah, well,
So,
I do love a good practical effect. I mean, sort of, for example, I'm just a massive fan of Frank Henenlotter's films like Basket Case and Brain Damage and all those. They're so vivid and so wild, and you can't make anything like that now. Or you can, but they're not being made because maybe people are using CG and different things like that. I absolutely love a good practical effect. And I always go back to my head in a lot of films. I always go back and watch those. They're just good comfort, fun, ridiculous OTT horror made on a shoestring. But look brilliant and stand up now. And people go and watch Basket Case now, and they'll have a great time.
yes. Do you think? Do you think, where do you think the status of British horror is today? I mean, is British horror, is it vibrant? Is it alive? I mean, there are a lot of good actors out there. I've
Yeah.
always said the UK is a little top heavy as far as their acting goes. You know, uh, they have the same 20 stars doing all the juicy roles, and it's very
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
for.
Like now, you've got your David Tennants and Benedict Cumberbatch and Michael Sheen and people like that. There are under the surface. There are some incredible actors. Certainly, ones who maybe haven't got that, like Tom Hiddleston, sort of class based kind of actor who's gone through very Oxford and Cambridge kind of people. There are people who have got an incredible, like for me, Paddy Considine is the greatest living actor. Possibly, definitely in Britain. He's Britain's De Niro. The guy is incredible. I challenge anyone to watch Dead Man's Shoes or A Room for Romeo Brass and not say that Paddy Considine is a gifted incredibly forceful, a real power. Like the guy, like my favorite. Put it this way, my favorite actors are like Brando, um, people like that on that level. And I put Paddy Considine right up there, and he's come from nothing. He's just a friend of Shane Meadows who turned out to be incredibly talented. And the problem is what I think what Jed Shepard said, and I'm just repeating what he said, is we have lost a lot of those people. We've lost a lot of the creators, we've lost a lot of the actors because there's no funding in terms of like schemes, acting schemes, directing schemes that used to be in our local colleges. They don't exist anymore. That level of support has gone. So you've really got the BFI who don't like horror, and the people at the top of the BFI are you're very much very rich people. So they're so rich, but the money comes from the national lottery. So people from working class backgrounds like me, people they do buy lottery tickets, and what do they want to see at the cinema? Horror.
Horror movies.
So the people paying the money are not getting what they want out of that bargain. The BFI is a very prestigious British Film Institute with great showings, and they show The Exorcist and things like that. And they show films that have got not a lot of links to Britain, but they don't back the people who have got the creativity, and that's really sad. So I'm hoping really that the people like you say Ben Wheatley who are going over to America and getting that funding, and Jason who I interviewed, and people like that, Jason Brown and Jed Shepard. I think Jed Shepard's going to be the leader of a movement of British film. I think he's going to get is Sam Raimi. He basically sees Sam Raimi as his mentor. I think he's going to get that kind of support, and he's refusing to kind of just move to Hollywood and do the Hollywood thing. He's going to do it all from Britain, and I think he might be a game changer. I'm not just saying that because I interviewed him, but he genuinely is.
Oh no! I'm interested in hearing you say this because that to me that's the exciting thing about interviewing people that maybe nobody else really knows about. A lot of the actors and the people I talk to, the majority people don't know. I get that all the time. Is who are you talking to? I'm talking to, I'm talking to this person, and they're like, what have they done? And I can tell part of it is I can tell how well known they are based on who doesn't show up. People, you interview someone who doesn't, people don't know, and they won't, and they won't show up. Oh, but good, I guess that's a little frustrating to me because to me, I always feel to me it's the most exciting interview to do is the one with someone that no one knows about. That's the most exciting interview to get. It's the one that we don't know about because, like, imagine being the first person I knew that interviewed David Thornton Howard was this guy named Brad down in New Mexico.
Right.
I didn't know who. I mean, I seen Art on another guy's channel because he loved Art the Clown. He was a big Terrifier fan, right? So he had the costume and everything. But as far as actually interviewing him, it was the first time I ever saw anybody interview him. It was him. He did it. He did the interview. And I think about that and go like, man, back in the day, you could actually sit there and say that you're one of the first to do so.
This is it. Someone has to be the first, don't they? Like this is why sometimes, like you say, to almost speculate to accumulate and just throw out those questions to people you admire. Like I'd love to interview like Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton, and obviously I can't interview Stuart Gordon, but he would have been incredible to interview. You never see Frank Henenlotter on anything really. There's certain people that I would love to who feel completely out of reach.
I mean, I will never pay for an interview. I mean, no. I know some channels haven't done that. They've had to pay for their interviews. I won't do that.
No, I mean,
and I know one actress. I've known her for years. A well-known actress, very well known. And when I started doing this, I thought, oh man, this will be easy. This will be. I mean, I'll come and ask her. She'll say yes. It'll be easy. So I contacted her, and she's, you have to talk to my PR person, my manager. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, I know what that means. That means he wants to get paid. And it's like, oh shit.
That's your first speak to my agent moment as well, which is a good one to tick off. Yeah.
That was my first to talk to the agent. And then the other one was or I posted a I went to interview, and he's a good friend of mine, and I love him dearly. And I was never more wrong about this is a funny story. So I go ahead and I meet a director, a screenwriter named Michael Cassie. Hi, Michael, if you're watching this. Um, I love this story because this tells you it just tells you about perseverance. So I go ahead and I go ahead to Michael and say, hey, he's got a new movie out called because I saw a movie that he did that he wrote or he wrote called Hangman. So I'm like, "Oh my god, that movie was awesome." It was such a great movie. Al Pacino, Brittany Snow, and Carl Urban. So,
Oh,
yeah, it was a great movie, fantastic movie. So I said, "Well, let me go ask see if this guy can, because he's going to be doing his first, he's directing his first movie. So I'm going to go ask him if he wants to go ahead and do an interview." So, and it's for Hunter's Moon, and so he says, "Sure, I'll do an interview with you." And I said, "Awesome." And so I bought the movie about Hunter's Moon, and then I watched it, and there was some, there was some, you can definitely tell some bumps and bruises in the movie, and
mhm,
I was just underwhelmed by it. I was like underwhelmed, and
right.
I wrote my review like that. I said I was expecting more, hoping for more, and and all of a sudden I get a ping from Michael. He says, "Well, I'm afraid I won't be able to do that interview because
Oh,
Lionsgate's not going to really be too happy about me going on there doing an interview after what you said about the film." But I liked him, and and I says, says maybe we'll work somewhere down the future. And I said we will. And I said, you know what, I can still do this. So I had a friend of mine who was running his own podcast, and I called him up. I said, "Man, you gotta interview this guy. I know you're looking for more high powered guests. I got one for you." And so Michael Cassie did an interview with him, and I told him after. I said I can't. I might not be able to work with you. It doesn't mean I can't still get you. Can't get you heard. So I said I booked you on this guy's show. So he went on the show, and he did the show, and it was great. And then me and Mike stayed in touch, and then I interviewed him. It was great, and then it was funny. It's like after it was funny because what happened was people started watching his movie Hunter's Moon.
ah,
Man, honestly, they loved it. They loved the
right.
movie. I loved the concept, and the concept of the movie was great, and it still
Yeah.
is. It's the concept of the movie is balls to the wall.
I'll have to check
I,
that. I've
I,
heard the name, but I've not seen it. But
it's
like I
with
say, I think Starlord was saying in the chat, I think Carl Urban is underrated, and
yes.
he's done. He's good in pretty much everything that I've seen him in.
Oh god, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I will. He's one of those actors that you just watch, regardless. Like Russell
yeah,
Crowe, like
yeah.
Russell Crowe or anybody like on that level. As soon
Those
as you
are
see
there's some great Australian actors. I'd throw like Eric Banner into that as well.
it,
Like when he did Chopper, and he was a stand-up comedian, and then he made that film Chopper. Is like amazing.
I would even go far as saying Robin Cleary is one that I really enjoyed quite a bit. I saw her do a movie with Adrian Brody called Backtrack, and,
Right.
and that was a fantastic movie.
There's
And then
some
I
great actors out there in Australia,
and
yeah,
then
and
you find out she
New
did the
Zealand.
Rumble. And I was
Right.
like, "Oh," yeah, it was one of those ones I asked, and it was one of those 98 that shot me out of the saddle. I said, "Would you like to come and do
Well,
an interview?"
do you
Uh,
know there's an actor who probably not many people remember. He's been around a long time, and he made a film called The Heartbreak Kid in Australia, which became a TV series called Heartbreak High. And he made another film called Head On, which was all about Greek Cypriot family in Australia and him coming to terms with his homosexuality during in a very old-fashioned family. And he's called Alex Dimitriadis. And I always felt he was going to become an incredible worldwide star. And he's kind of just stayed over there and done soaps and a few things like that. There's a series called The Slap, which I think they remade in America. It's about
right.
like a group of people on a holiday, and one of the dads hits one of the other kids and it all unravels from there. He's
Right.
in that. He's in the Australian. I think he's in maybe in the American or the Australian version of that, and he was great. And there's these little enclaves of incredible talent. And I guess Russell Crowe would be upset if we said he was Australian because he's from New Zealand. But
Zealand. Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah, you don't want to do that. You don't want to call them Australian. but but yeah, there's a lot of talent in New Zealand.
oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
one
They
director
don't like
who
they don't like us very much. They don't like the Brits very much. But yeah.
I don't know. Well, all the Kiwis I've talked to have been extremely friendly to me. I will
Yeah, I
say
think
I will
Australians
say
don't like British.
I'll say I did, but let me ask you this question too. I won't keep you too much longer.
That's fine.
One question I have for you, another question I have for you too is, are there any films that you would, it's like not only would you, have you ever reviewed a certain genre of film that has made, like you just not used to it? Like for me, I just did one for the first time. It was strange because it was like my first true gay horror film. It was my
Right. Oh,
first
cool.
movie, and I watched and I reviewed it. Now I've done movies with horror with gay elements in it, in the plot or what
Yeah.
have you. But this was the first one that was directly targeted for a gay audience. And it's like, have you ever come across a genre of film where you've never done it before and you don't know how to
Yeah.
handle it?
Yeah. So I'll preface this with the fact that I used to work in a school where we had about 37 languages and lots of diversity in the school, but I'd never really sat and watched a film from like India or Pakistan that wasn't martial arts based. And they released the Bollywood the Bollywood Nightmare on Elm Street McCall on like a boutique. I can't remember who it was. A boutique film. And I I found it really hard to get on with because it had such broad comedy and dancing, but also this like kind of knockoff Freddy Krueger as well. Um, I found it really entertaining. I'll probably never watch it again. Um, but I recommend watching it. It's a bit like Al said to me about film school and things like that. Is sometimes when you go to these places, you're not necessarily learning lots of skills, but you're being pointed towards films that you would never have watched.
Yes. I'm still trying to get a copy of RRR. I've never watched that, but I heard so many good things about it that I really want to see it.
I don't
And
know that. What's that?
oh my gosh, it was a big hit last year, massive hit. It was like
Right. Oh,
yeah, it was like, I mean, it was everywhere. I've been trying to wait for it to come down from my library. I'll probably end up just renting it, but I heard it was just crazy good.
oh,
Uh,
oh.
I I never really, I love foreign film, and I watch a lot of foreign film.
Mhm.
That's not a problem. Foreign films, no problem. It's I've watched Japanese, Korean,
Yeah.
anything that moves out there. The fact that
Like Bergman, like people like that's one thing people always point you towards Bergman and like The Seventh Seal is an incredible film and was it Wild Strawberries. Like I would have never have watched those if people hadn't have kind of made me watch them for like an essay or I had to do it. And I'm really glad. Like I had to watch. This is not a foreign film, but I had to watch the film. Have you ever seen a film called Spanking the Monkey?
yes, yes,
I had
Jeremy
to watch
Davies.
that. Yeah, and I do think it's a great film.
It is.
But we talk
It's,
about uncomfortable film to watch.
did you ever see Savage Grace?
No,
Ooh,
no. Similar theme. If it's similar themes, I might.
similar thing
Yeah.
with Eddie
Oh wow.
Redmayne. It was I think what Eddie Redmayne's first roles, and he
Yeah.
blew up. He blew up after that movie. He ended up doing
Right.
he's done a lot of. He ended up doing won an Oscar, if I'm not mistaken, for the Danish Girl.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he did the Danish
Wow.
Girl. He's done Jupiter Ascending. He did the Fantastic Creatures and Where to Find Them. That's him. That's Eddie
Yeah.
Redmayne. And one of
Him
his
and
first roles.
him and Andrew Garfield really took off around the same time. And I'm a big fan of Andrew Garfield. I think he's really and I know we use the phrase underrated, but I think if people just think of him as like the Spider-Man that wasn't as successful as other Spider-Man, like you're underselling him. He's done some great challenging films. There's one called Boy A. He did a really good one. I'm trying. Oh, of course, Silence, the Martin Scorsese. Which again is a really challenging film, I think, but I actually think it's one of Scorsese's best.
Yeah.
It's really, incredible epic film, hard to watch,
People forget
relentlessly miserable and violent,
Pe-
but
people
great.
forget people forget Scorsese can do other things other than gangster movies.
Yeah, I mean that's 100 times better than say The Irishman. Like you put The Irishman and Silence next to each other, like
Yeah,
Silence wins every time.
yeah, it's hard to believe that the Irishman got a Criterion release straight out of the box. It was like
It's a
I,
really uncanny valley as well of like de-aging where it just looks weird. It
it
looks
looked
like
really
the
bad.
mafia
Yeah,
game.
the fight scenes were horrible. It was like I
Yeah,
watched the fight scenes where they're supposed to be getting all tough, and it's like,
yeah,
what did you do? Did you like did you have to cover off the canes and the crutches because it looks horrible. It looks like
yeah.
if Robert De Niro tries to if he tries to kick that guy, he's gonna break a hip. Uh,
Well, that's it.
Hacksaw
Yeah.
Ridge was awesome. Agree, Star Lord. That's a really good
Yeah,
movie.
that's a really good point. Yeah. Again, I think people sometimes forget how good Andrew Garfield has been in things. He's got a real humanity and he does follow and I think he does follow the sort of Stella Adler method, and he's a bit of a throwback in that sense. I know people throw the word method around left, right, and center in it, but like to actually study and I remember reading the book at university, and there's a lot to it. Some that's why Brando was so uh, ahead of his time was because he studied and studied and studied and uh, couple that with natural charisma and you've got an unstoppable kind of force and Andrew Garfield's kind of doing some of those things, but because he's a nice guy and friendly and really personable and interviews and things like that, maybe people don't think he's like this
Well,
serious actor,
he did a movie with Michael Shannon uh, um, called 99 Homes, and
Oh
in it,
yeah.
yeah, he wasn't a nice guy there.
No, no, and this, yeah, it's funny. I never intended on coming on and kind of singing the praises of Andrew Garfield, but and I listened to a really good interview with him on the Mark Maron podcast, and you really got underneath the surface. He's very open to learning, and just seems like a really sound guy, like a really nice guy. So,
I really
um,
respect actors that do that too.
mm, me
My
too.
one of my favorite actresses. Oh my god, it's so much fun. I love it. So one of my favorite actresses is a lady named Crystal Lowell, and she got really well known in horror films. In fact, she actually did
That sounds
wrong.
familiar.
Yeah, she did Final Destination 3, Wrong Turn 2. She's
Okay.
Insomnia. Um, she did the thing in Insomnia before they did it in Autopsy of Jane Doe. But she's a terrific actress. But she changed her career, right? So she went from doing all those edgy movies, and she came and started doing Hallmark movies. Hallmark movies are, famous.
Oh,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh! The
the
first
Joey
one
Lawrence kind of things.
they had her playing a mousy postal worker, and you see her
Uh,
coming out, and you're like, yeah, you're not fooling anybody with that because she's just absolutely drop dead gorgeous. But they had her in glasses and quirky clothes and
Yeah,
all. And
it's like,
it's like, yeah,
what's that? Not another teen movie where they do the "She's All That" thing, and it's like she's wearing glasses and she has a ponytail. I'm gonna be sick like that. They're
right,
all wretched because it's like just such a joke that it's very clear that these actresses are absolutely drop dead gorgeous, and all they need to do is take the bubble out, take the
right,
glasses off, and they're like, ta-da!
yeah, that's
Sadly, I
funny.
don't have the benefit of doing that.
But I do like actors that venture out of their comfort zones. I
Yes,
do.
yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, I
A
mean,
lot of people get
it's having the opportunity to do that, and sometimes making your own opportunities. Yourself, or you can kind of see why certain filmmakers continue to make movies and continue to make them because um, they built up a sort of prestige, and then people go, "Oh, I want to work with that person," and it kind of ties in. And sometimes it's a diminishing returns of quality. Um, like Woody Allen, for example. Like I was a massive. I'm going to not talk about the person, but the filmmaker. And the
yeah,
filmmaker, I love. Like Annie Hall's one of my favorite films of all time,
sure.
and and then he has these frustrating moments where, like, was it One Night in Paris or the one in Paris, Midnight in Paris? That's a great film, but then he has these unwatchable ones sporadically throughout. And I just wonder sometimes that happens. You know, how the
I think
quality
I think it's
control
I think
gets.
when he doesn't cast himself,
That's a good point.
he does better.
Yeah, yeah.
Though I do think the Scoop was really cute. I do think Scoop
Yeah, that
was
was a
really
good
cute.
one. I quite like ones that are just good old like I love Alan Alda. Alan Alda's one of my favorite actors of all time. I think he could do anything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he Manhattan Murder Mystery. Um, you know, that's a good fun Woody Allen film. But like Alan Alda does though, you know, he's a perfect foil because he's just as quick-witted and just as smart, just as good.
Oh,
Um,
there's nothing more fun to see your favorite actor going against type, right? There's
yeah,
like, like
yeah,
Andrew Garfield when he comes out there and he's in 99 Homes, you're thinking, "Wow, he's
yeah,
never done that before," and, I remember Alan Alda, here he was, he's done 11 years of MASH, Hawkeye
yeah,
Pierce,
yeah,
super good guy
legend.
and everything else, and then next
Mhm.
thing you know, you see him playing the bad guy in a 1600 murder at 1600, and all of a sudden he's the
Oh.
bad guy, and you're sitting there, your mind is blown, just like, what?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
because
like,
like, you used to see even when he was in ER, he was essentially playing like an older Hawkeye,
right,
um, which is great because you're like, "It's Hawkeye." He's like, yeah, amazing. Um,
that's
but
so
yeah,
much.
it is nice to see something across, you know, across a genre completely change tack or try something different. It is
Yeah,
fun.
I applaud that. I really do. But
Mm.
listen, let's talk a little bit about what you got coming up on your channel, so I can let you get out of here because it's still afternoon over here, but it's late there.
That's fine.
What's
I'm
going
really
on with your
enjoying it, by
channel?
the way.
Oh, I'm glad. Me too. This is a lot of fun.
Oh,
And
thanks, man.
Star Lord, thank you, Star Lord has saved our chat. But we did get you a couple of subs. We got Star Lord subbed and a Katie sub to you
Oh,
for
thank you
popping the
guys. Oh,
popcorn.
that really
So
means a lot. That is a lot like a genuine, you know, a genuine subscription by people who are watching. And obviously, you know, if they're fans of you, they're really discerning. So that's great. That's lovely. Thank you.
Uh, uh, but we want to know what's coming up on your channel. Who's going to be your next interview?
So I've got a couple scheduled that are coming up. The next one is a director called Dylan Brown, who he's like kind of this leader of a found footage kind of revival around Nevada. He did a film called Tahoe Joe. It's on Tubi. In fact, if you type in Dylan Brown, Dillon Brown into Tubi, you can see all four of his films. The
Hmm.
latest one, he is doing a sequel to Tahoe Joe. It's kind of a found footage Sasquatch, but not in a silly way. It's quite creative. That's my favorite one of his. That's the one I really enjoyed. He's doing a Tahoe Joe 2 because it's done so well. And he's kind of inspired lots of other people. So he's coming up. We've also got um, an actor called Mike Paquin who did he's in a film coming up called Caddy Hack. It's kind of like a horror
Yeah,
spoof on Caddyshack.
yeah.
He plays the kind of Bluto, John Belushi kind of character in it. He's so interesting. He was one of the brains behind a lot of the things at Funko. So I've done two interviews with him, one based on what he did at Funko and one based on his acting. And he's really taken off as a character actor in his kind of sort of 40s to 50s. He's really taken off as a kind of character actor. He's really good as well. And I put a link to his film, short film that he won an award for.
Okay.
And next week is the Hallow Ian live. Next Wednesday, Hallow Ian horror host live episode. Um,
What time will that start? Will that start at 7 o'clock your time?
I think it is 8. I think it's 8, yeah. And so that'll be an interesting one because I've not done a live one before. So if you want to watch something a bit rough around the edges, that'll be a good one to watch.
Oh, I love live interviews. I love them.
So it should
I
be
do.
interesting.
I love them so much more than I love edited ones. Edited ones, I don't. I mean, edited. They're edited. Me,
Sure.
I just fly. It's just rip and go.
That's why I enjoy yours. I enjoy yours. I enjoy looking to see who's coming up as well. So like you're more organized than me. So I can see who I'm like, oh, that'll be good. Like I'm gonna stay online and watch your next one. But the other thing as well, I'm uploading like a short every day from now until probably Christmas, just to
Okay.
kind of as a little experiment. So it'd be interesting and see if people like those as well. Just my silly sense of humor to kind of because obviously interview, just kind of get a bit of it. And I've made a silly intro as well.
I might try to do a couple of shorts. I do shorts, but I feature with the cheetah. You know, I do a lot of shorts with the cheetah.
Oh man, that's
and
awesome. I should get my my dog involved, I think.
Yes, pets. They say pets add views. I mean, sometimes the cheetah does well. Sometimes, you know, I don't know. I just like,
You'll have to have a conversation. Have to do a bit of coaching.
yeah, I have to ask him. You know, it depends where I film him at too. If I have filmed him doing something fun, people seem to like it. Like when he's attacking my feet, people like that. But you know, I feel like, well, do you want me? You know, because he loves attacking my feet.
Maybe they're voting for your feet though. Maybe that's the whole.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe
got an audience.
I'm thinking next time he does this, I should throw some food coloring on there so people can actually see some blood and guts on my feet. All right, Matt. Star-Lord, thank you so much for hanging out. Really do appreciate that. I hope you had a lot of fun today, Matt. And I hope that yeah, you know, I never interviewed the Bat before, so I got him coming in October.
Yeah, he told me. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can then schedule some time to send loads of questions through. Yeah,
by all means.
I'd love to have you on. I'd love to interview you as well, if at some point, if that's okay. And really,
I'll probably I'll definitely be open for that in December. I'm taking November off.
That's not a problem. We can put a pin in it, but I just wanted to get you to say yes.
Yes. Yes, I will be more than happy to do that for you, and that'll be a lot of fun. I think us interviewer channels need to stick together.
For sure. Agreed.
And I said it before, and I'll say it again. Like, you know, someone actually said that interview shows are easy. That's what he said. He says interviews are anybody could do an interview show. It's like, well, I haven't
find my notebook.
Yeah, I was gonna say I you know, yeah, I haven't seen you do anyone. But interviews are harder than what they appear to be. It takes a lot of hard work to do that, to do an interview. You know, you have to. It's not as simple as just turning on and just talking. It may appear to be, but there's a lot goes on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about.
And leaving space and not talking is really hard for people who like to talk, like myself and yourself. You know, we're okay talking. We quite enjoy it. I'm sure I don't want to speak for you, but sometimes holding back and letting people go. I think that's why, like, to go back to like your interviews, I love your interviews because it's a really nice conversation. That, you know, it's a conversation, and that's what I like about yours.
Oh, thank you so much. I don't want to come across as just a question. You know, to me, it's like, you know, like I really liked yesterday a lot. I interviewed Shane Barella, and man, it was so cool because all I had to do was just turn on the faucet to let him tell a story. I just laid back there and he just told it. It was such a fascinating story too. And then I've had interviews on where I had this one guy come on, and he's a friend of mine too, and you know, I've known him for years, an acquaintance I should say, but I've known him for years, and I had him come on the midnight hour, and he was going to be talking about kaiju.
Oh, cool.
Lord, oh no, oh Lord.
No.
He talked, and he talked. I mean, we couldn't even get in there to get another question. It was like I brought people in so we could all ask him questions, and he had done his own panels, and he'd done interviews before. So I thought he knew the game, but he came on in there and he just was like, he didn't make eye contact with us.
Yeah, he was over caffeinated and went for it.
Right,
Yeah.
he was sitting there talking down like this, so he couldn't catch me going like, you know,
that's why I think somebody like I'd love to interview Kevin Smith, but I feel like he would just be too much for me. Like, just because he's so schooled now and he's done it for so long and he's so comfortable in his own skin, and he has that, he can talk about anything for any period of time. I still would love to interview him, but I think it'd be hard to, like, I'd maybe not prepare a massive amount of questions.
That's the key too, is I never do prepared questions. I never do.
Right. I do. I have to. I've prepared things for this conversation just so that I don't go blank, because I'm not very good with if somebody just puts a camera in my face or a thing. I'm not very good with that. I'm not very. I am if I'm watching a movie. I'll watch and watch along, and I will, because I was brought up on Mystery Science Theatre. That's my jam. I will sit and chat about a movie all day long. But if somebody just goes, "What do you think?" then that's why I'm very sensitive of how I interview people, because I find that quite intimidating if someone's like, "You, or you," and that's quite hard to take. Yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily, you're not like that. You're very gentle.
No, yeah, I tell people who are because I do a lot of people's first time interviews.
Right.
A lot of people that interview with me, it's their
That's
first
good.
time, and it
Oh, that's
shocks me
cool.
because I'm looking at people who's had like 9 or 10 movies on their resume, and
Yeah.
then when they say, "Well, this is my first interview," I'm going like, "Why is this your first interview?"
Hmm.
You know, like, why? Because, you know,
Yeah.
you
They're
I look
fascinating
at it.
people.
Yeah, you gotta and well, you know what though? But press has never been more important to an artist than today. It really never has. It never really has, because there's so much out there now, Matt, that it's just like
Oh,
if you don't stand up for yourself or your movie, you're gonna get swept away.
yeah.
You
You
just
gotta
are.
promote yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta promote yourself, and that's a really tricky thing to do.
Um,
Yeah, it's really tricky. Full stop.
I was talking to another guy who's actually getting ready to do his very first interview, solo interview,
Oh, cool.
and he let me, you know, he sent out reminders. He says, I hope I'm not spamming you. I don't want to seem like I'm spamming or self-promoting. I'm going like, you're not doing either one.
Just do it. Yeah.
You have a guest you're talking to. You have every right to sit there and tell people about it. You're not promoting
Mm.
yourself, you're promoting your guest. You
Yeah,
know,
that's
that's the
true.
thing. Yeah, I mean, when you're promoting yourself, that means you're dropping off going like, "Hey, I'm talking about Scream," and
Mm.
drop it. You're promoting yourself there. But when you're talking to a guest, it's not about us.
Yeah.
We're not. It's nobody cares about us. They want to see the guests. They want to see what they have to say. You know,
Yeah.
and that's what you try to promote for.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, thank you for doing that for me today. Hopefully, a few people will get on board with the channel, and then they can learn
Yeah,
about some new creators. Like I'll say, go and watch the New Hands. That's on Tubi. Tahoe Joe. That's on Tubi. Death Track,
I saw
which is
Death Track. I've seen Death
yeah.
Track. Yeah,
The,
it
the,
was
the, the,
underneath
the-
another name, but I did see it.
yes, Morris, or no, not Morris. Oh, it does have another name. You're right. And these guys, are busting a gut to really make the best film they can possibly make, and just
Yeah.
watch it with that. If you watch it with that in mind, you'll go, "Oh, that was a really brilliant scene," or "I can't wait to see their next movie."
Yeah, they really worked hard on it. I mean, I admired it. I liked it for what it was. I
Yeah,
did. They tried the hard, and I would
it's like
talk to
zero
anybody.
budget.
I would talk to anybody on. I would talk to any of the cast.
Yeah,
I got a couple of English people I can send you away too if you guys are if you're looking for an interview.
sure. Yeah, certainly
One
in January onwards, I'm open. Hopefully.
okay.
Hopefully.
Darren James King, and Kelly Goody Price, and a few others I could definitely send your
That'd be
way.
great. That'd be great. I'd love to. I like watching, like, say, when, for instance, with Dylan Brown the other day. I watched all of his films in a row, and you just get to see that journey of the filmmaker.
Yes.
Really, really interesting. It's fascinating stuff. And
Man,
if you can,
doesn't that frustrate you though when you find a director like that? Well, for me, it's like Aslan Clark, Liam Gavin. I'm still waiting for
Mhm.
Liam Gavin. I'm still waiting for Jason Stutter. I love Jason Stutter. He made one movie. He made The Dead Room. New Zealand director.
Right.
Came out in 2015. Still waiting for a second movie.
Wow.
Liam Gavin did my favorite film I ever reviewed. That was a Dark Song. Still waiting for a second movie. Ashley Clark, she's actually her movies in post production. She's done other projects since The Devil's Doorway, so I know that's coming up. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh,
It's
cool.
very exciting.
Isn't it
So
funny as well? You've kind of told me some British people, and I've come straight back with some filmmakers from the USA.
yeah,
um,
isn't that how that works?
yeah, but you know,
I really do enjoy watching British horror and British actors,
me too.
and you
Yeah.
know there's great talent in Europe. It just needs to be talked about. It needs to be brought over. you
Yeah,
know?
and like we go through these phases. Like Italy had the sort of giallo phase, and we had the Hammer horror, and then there was the found footage after Blair Witch in the US, and obviously the big '80s slashes. It's just about sometimes just biding your time until the thing that you're into becomes popular again. Do you know what? Speaking of found footage, um, the film that I helped out with a little bit, Dustin Tamplin's film Lights Over Montgomery County, is coming out soon. If people go to my channel and look at the bit that says I helped a very little bit with a horror movie, it's only a short video. Even if you don't watch the video, click on the description. There's loads of links to the film. He's done that on $500, and it's incredible what he's done with $500. So he's
Uh,
going to be great, Justin Tamplin.
I turned on Casey, Inner Way of Kaiju. I turned him on to the Dead Room. We did we watched it together, and yeah, he liked it as we both I liked it. It was one of my it was my first
I'm going to
IFC
have to
movie.
watch that.
It was so good.
Yeah,
It's very adult, which I really liked.
yeah.
Really liked.
You have
Um,
to send me a link or reminder
I
later on, and
definitely
I will
will.
watch it.
I'll send
Thank you, man.
you I'll send you my review for it. Um,
Awesome. Oh, that's great.
but yeah, let me get you out of here. I keep on talking and it's like it's nighttime over
We
there.
could talk. We could talk forever. Right.
Uh,
Thanks, man.
yeah, thank you. Thank you guys. We'll be back here at 8 o'clock with Jamie Hart. Come back and see us
Watch
later.
that.
We'll talk at you soon.